Life is hectic.
Some days are just a blur.
We're Jay and Laura LaFoon, and we help busy couples stay married for life.
Welcome to the Married for Life podcast. You know, Christmas is my favorite time of the year. Summer is my favorite season of the year. But I think March Madness is definitely one of my favorite times of the year because, you know, I don't follow, like, I love NFL Sundays watching football, which we don't get to do very much because we're on the road. But I love March Madness. I love
March Madness.
I don't
oh my goodness.
follow college basketball, like watch every game all the time. But when it comes March, it's like I'm dialed in. Like I'm ready this weekend to watch Duke and North Carolina and Michigan State. We're getting ready for the tourney. Well, because in our family, we always do a little, what's that called? The bracket thing. We do a...
It's a bracket buster. I win it, so no one will play with me anymore, but we do a pool.
That's the word I'm looking for.
We don't do an office pool, we do a family pool, and no one will play with me because I won like 18 years in a row, and they think I cheat. Well, how can you cheat on who's going to win? No, I just have superior knowledge.
There's just something exciting about watching college basketball.
It is. And
it's not that exciting to watch pro basketball.
No, I can't stand pro basketball, but this is one of the best times of year if you are a sports lover. If you're not a sports lover, you should just watch just one game, and see the excitement in these college kids. These are children, you know, that are playing, and they're so good, and it's so much fun to watch. And I saw a stat the other day that the average margin of victory so far in this year's college basketball is 6 points.
Oh, wow.
So the parity out there is phenomenal. And, of course, if you've watched it all, you've seen that in some of the games. It's just been a lot of great games out there won by very close points. So we're super excited. If you don't like March Madness, we're sorry, but we really do.
Well, this is the time I like to remind Jay of how blessed he is to have a wife who loves to watch sports. Because I do love to watch sports. I love to watch, except for, like, the only professional sports I like to watch are football. Is there another professional sport? I don't think so.
I will watch the World Series a little bit, but
when Grace was a swimmer, we would watch swimming.
Yeah.
We always watch the Olympics. But yeah, I do love to watch sports. But I played sports, so there you go. Well, shout out to a listener. Cindy wrote us after attending one of our date nights. Our biggest struggle right now is refocusing our relationship after the nest becomes empty. I've been searching for a video Bible series for those in the same boat, or shall I say nest as us, with no luck. If you have a resource or lead on a resource, I would love it. And if you don't, maybe you should write one. There we go. Maybe we should write because we're loving the empty nest, actually. This would be very, very valuable for us and others that are at this point in their life. Thanks for a fun night and good laughs. So many times after either attending a seminar or watching a Christian-based movie, my husband and I will go home and have a disagreement. Saturday was the first time that we didn't. After your show, we just went home and laughed and started to implement the recommendations that you provided. Thanks again.
Empty nest. There's an interesting concept. We're not going to talk a lot about that today, but we know that there are some of you out there who are empty nesters, and we know there's some of you that are approaching empty nest and you're scared to death. The reason is because you've focused on your kids and not your spouse. There, I can't say it any simpler than that.
Well, that may be
not trying to be mean, but that may be what may. That's obviously one of the reasons. I don't have to be politically correct here when it comes to marriage. I can call it as it is. And the reality is you've got to reignite that.
Like she said here, refocus on our relationship.
Right. And, it's easy to fall into bad habits along the way that now you've got to correct. Because you don't want to go the way of some people, and when the kids leave the nest, they part ways. That just does not make sense to me at all.
Our job as parents were to raise up kids who leave.
And once they leave, enjoy the fruit of our...
And we've done a very good job because ours don't come back that often either. They move
or away. Call or anything, yeah. That's your mother whining there, Tori and Grace. Anyway.
I'm the one that said they leave. You're the one that said they don't call. So that was you whining there, sir.
Okay, that was me whining, yes.
But yes, empty nest, we've enjoyed it. We've embraced it. And finding new adventures all the time. It's really something fun that we enjoy doing. But that's not what we're talking about today. Last week's podcast, we talked about being a leader. And this week, we're talking about how can we be led.
So before you jump off the wagon here, go back and listen. If you didn't listen to last week's, please do. Because being a leader is not about position. It's not about gender. It's not about authority. It's about attitude. And the same is
It's true for being led.
For being led.
It's it's an attitude, and basically it's submitting to your spouse's leadership, or we should say gifts and abilities, how they're different than you. And so again, it's not gender specific, it's not role specific. It is an attitude that we learning from each other is essentially being led by the other person. I mean, when we got married, we may have told this story before, but I thought budget was a 4-letter word. I did not enjoy saving money. I enjoyed spending money. And so when we sat down as a married couple to do our budget, I can remember the first time Jay was talking about, giving money to the church, tithing. And he said, so what we need to tithe every month is $300.
Because we were both working and making about $1,500 each a month.
I'm like, seriously, $300? That's like a washing machine. And we need one of those so we don't have to go to my mother's to wash our clothes. But no, first thing was to tithe right off the top. And that was a way that Jay led in our family, in our marriage. And that was one way I was led by his leadership. And so,
realizing our limitations. I think most of us...
That's the first step, is realizing our limitations.
Most of us don't want to realize our limitations. We are human. We have things that we're good at, and we have things that we're not so good at. So in marriage, in this thing called marriage, which is really you're a team, you're together, you're whatever, the first aspect is to realize that, I have limitations, Laura has limitations.
What are your limitations?
My limitations are home decor. If I were decorating our house, everything would be beige. Now that was the way it was maybe 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. But now I've learned from Laura how color and fabric and texture and everything go together, and that's one way that Laura has led me is in realizing how to create beauty in our home and around our home. The other way Laura's led me is in how to. I didn't realize I had limitations on my energy. I'm a high energy guy. I'm go do. But like we've said before, 2 bouts with pneumonia made me realize that I had limitations. And Laura has helped me learn how to live
within those limitations.
And how to live not going 150 miles an hour 8 days a week.
So really thinking about in your marriage, what is it that you do well, and what is it that your spouse does well, and understanding that you can learn from each other. Learn from each other about what your spouse is good at, and that leads us kind of to the next step in this being led. But we will talk about that as we come back after the break.
Hi, everyone. This is Paul Thomas, Director of Live Events here at Celebrate Ministries. Celebrate Your Marriage at Grand Hotel is coming up soon, May 19th through the 20th on Mackinac Island in beautiful northern Michigan. Now, for over 20 years, we've invited couples to come to Mackinac Island, and this year, in addition to Jay and Laura LaFoon, we've got America's Got Talent finalist and sand artist Joe Castillo coming to the conference. For you podcast listeners, we have a special deal. If you go to today's show notes, you will find a special link. Use that link to purchase tickets, and you will get $10 off each ticket. That's $20 off each couple coming to celebrate your marriage at Grand Hotel. The link can only be found in the show notes, and it's a way we want to celebrate and thank you for listening to the Married for Life podcast. Now, Celebrate Your Marriage gives you and your spouse the chance to slow down, to focus on each other, remember why you got married, and it's all with the backdrop of one of the most romantic locations in America. From the moment you get on Mackinac Island by ferry to the horse-drawn carriages you see all around the island, to the beautiful views and the wonderful food at Grand Hotel, Celebrate Your Marriage is a great and wonderful weekend getaway for you and your spouse. The conference goes for 2 days. We're excited to welcome Keith and Chandra Rushing of Better Half Ministries for our special VIP experience. The VIP experience includes a private dinner with the Rushings and the LaFoons on May 20th, as well as sessions on May 21st. That gives you and your spouse a chance to stay one more night at historic Grand Hotel and lengthen the Celebrate Your Marriage experience. Now, you can find out more about Celebrate Your Marriage at Grand Hotel by visiting celebrateyourmarriage.com. But remember, podcast listener special, go to the link in the show notes to receive a $20 per couple discount to conference tickets. Now, the ultimate date night, he said, she said winter tour continues this week. Manheim, Pennsylvania is where Jay and Laura will be. Next week, the LaFoons will be in Saginaw, Michigan, and Sault Ste. St. Marie, Michigan. You can find out the rest of the stops on the Ultimate Date Night Tour by visiting jayandlaura.com. Now, let's get back to Jay and Laura Lafleur.
All right, we're going to be talking today about being led.
And this could be a controversial.
And you just go, ooh, I don't know, my spouse isn't in charge. I can remember, when we first got married, I don't even know where the scripture is, unfortunately. I should, but it talks about the man in charge of the wife or whatever. I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't think so. But really, as I've grown and matured, I understand that
it was a little bit more stern than that. You were like, well, heck no.
It's the attitude of learning from each other.
Yep.
And that's what we're talking about today, leading and being led. Last week we talked about leadership. This week we're talking about being led in your marriage, and realizing your limitations is the first step. And then the second one is to acknowledge your spouse's gifts and abilities that you don't have.
Well, and that was a difficult thing for me because, again, I'm a type A driven person. I think I'm perfect in every way.
Every way.
By the way, that passage that you don't like is Ephesians 5:21. That's the real controversial passage that says...
It's not that I don't like it. It was one translation that said the man is in charge.
Right. And we really believe that being led is not about roles. It's not about gender. It's not about authority. It's about these attitudes. And the attitude that you have about not only leading, like we talked about last week, but being led will make or break your marriage. And the next thing we have to do is acknowledge our spouse's gifts and abilities.
And I think one of the turning points for us was when we wrote a book together, because we perform on stage together, and we're very different in the way that we prepare. We're very different in the way that we write. And I remember when we wrote our first book together, Jay is very wordy and I'm very succinct, but we had to have both.
Right.
In making that first book work. We couldn't be overly wordy and we couldn't be underly wordy, I guess would be a good word, and realizing that we both contributed to the book in different ways. And that's acknowledging your spouse's gifts and abilities in your marriage too. Gifts and abilities that you don't have, that your spouse does have, that contribute to the marriage and you can learn from.
So as we said earlier in the podcast, my understanding of money and budgeting and how money works, Laura really had to submit to my authority there. Not authority, but I guess my knowledge.
Your knowledge, which is authority.
Right. And that ability that I had to keep a budget and create a budget. And then in so many ways, I have submitted to her over the years. Really, we've just noticed this. Laura has been my drugstore,
calming influence,
so to speak. I'm convinced that I have high anxiety, but I don't, because Laura has really worked like a drug in my life and helped me learn. She has led me to calm down. She has led me not to be so anxious, and that's a gift that I think she has, that she brought to the marriage. That is a real leadership gift, to pull me back when I need to be pulled back.
So really asking in your marriage, what are the gifts and abilities that you have that contribute to your marriage? And what are the gifts and abilities that your spouse has that contributes to your marriage? And how can we learn from each other?
Oh, and here's the word that no one likes, but how can we submit to one another?
Right.
That's, I have to submit to Laura's calming presence when she says, you're getting a little jacked up here, Jay, you got to calm down. Early in our marriage, I was like, forget you, I'm going to be up.
Well, and even just times like when we've come off a 2-week tour and you want to get right into work the next day after we've, arrived home at 10 o'clock at night, you're up and ready to go on Tuesday morning. And hey, how about you just take some time off? How about you just relax a little bit? It's why he got pneumonia, because he doesn't shut his body down. He thinks it's enough that he just sleeps at night.
All right. So leadership is not about gender. It's not about roles. It's not about authority. And being led is the same thing. Being led is not about gender. It's not about authority. It's about submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. We submit to Christ, and we submit to one another in those areas.
And again, Christ is the one that's given us the gifts and abilities, and he gave them to each of us as individuals for a reason. And so realizing those limitations, acknowledging your spouse's gifts and abilities, and that they were given to your spouse by Jesus. And then last but not least,
this is my favorite,
understanding that marriage is a team sport.
Marriage is a team sport. That's my favorite I love team sports. I love to play golf. Many of you know that. My favorite type of golf is to play like in a Ryder Cup format where you're playing with other people against another team. Probably my second favorite sport to play is basketball. I used to play a lot of basketball. I know I'm short and I'm round, but I'm quick and I got a good jump shot. So, that reality is I love the team aspect of basketball. Again, March Madness. It's not necessarily going to be the team with the best player, like many times it is in NBA, but it's going to be the team that plays best together that's going to win the national championship.
Well, and I just think one of Jay and I's passions that we've developed here probably in the last 7 to 10 years is we enjoy cooking together. We really enjoy cooking together. And last night we were cooking, I don't even know how to say it, a beef bulgogi bowl. We are now, because of our travel time, we now subscribe to HelloFresh, a food service. And so we get the food, we get the recipes, but we still get the joy of cooking. And we've kind of developed this system for how we cook. I get everything out of the bag, I wash it, I chop it. He starts on the protein, and I'm kind of like the sous chef, and he's like the chef. And so
no. I do the protein. Okay, let's just be honest. As who's in charge?
I'm getting the. You need a quarter cup of this or a half a cup of that or a teaspoon of this. And I've chopped up the vegetables and then, okay, here's the next step that we have to do. And so we've really developed this team mentality to the way that we cook. And so I was just noticing that last night as we were cooking this delicious beef bulgogi bowl that we really have kind of settled into our gifts when it comes to cooking.
And in regard to who's in charge and who's not, who asks the other one the most? Laura, what do we do next? Laura, what do we do next? So that will tell you who's in charge.
That's because I have my glasses on and can read the instructions and you don't have your glasses
But it really is a team. It's interesting. And for those of you that don't have the privilege of working with your spouse, it's going to be a little bit harder. When you work with your spouse, you really develop that team feel. When you don't work with your spouse, you're going to have to come together after living separate lives during the day, and you have to come together and really focus on that team aspect of here we're going to tackle these things together, not separately. Well, we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. We hope that you will rate us, that you will share us, and that we will grow this marriage community of helping busy couples stay happily married for life.